Okay, so welcome back to the afternoon block here at WPCampus. My name is Mark. I'm an employee at Canisius College, so on behalf of Canisius College, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. First up in this room is John Rhea. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually read the bio. This is worth reading. John is a storyteller with design and development skills. By day, he designs and builds websites and mobile apps. By night, he spins sci-fi stories on his blog and counts his words carefully at 8wordstories, all one word, .com. He has a wife, 5 kids, 5 cats, 4 dogs, and a small army of fish. If he remembers to wear pants, it's a good day, and you're in luck. It's looking like a good day. All yours, John.
Thank you. We're actually up to 6 cats now. I'm not sure what that means, but I love my wife. All right. Welcome to Finding Eternal Rest. I went with a dark theme and then forgot about how projectors sometimes make that a bad choice. So I think we'll be good to go, but if there's anything that's hard to read, just throw up a hand. Now, I know that many of you have probably seen this myth in the media that there are guns kill zombies. In fact, websites kill zombies. Websites that are built well, that are fast, interesting, contain great content, they're the things that kill zombies. So, our mission today, recording. Pardon the inability to do these things. Hold on a second. I didn't know what I was doing.
You might be. This is logged out.
Is that recording? It looks
Oh, stop share. So
that red dot is that a recording?
I think so.
Okay. So for all of you who are watching from home and see this horrible mess of this, my apologies. Here we go. Okay. Now, our battle plan. First, we're going to look at how the REST API works with some shotgun schematics. We're going to take a look at modifying the API. So these 2 sections are going to be about the first half hour. From then on, we're going to be heading out on a raid and building what I'm calling the Zombie Reader, which is a small JavaScript app to actually pull in some JSON stuff and play with it. For this, you'll need an internet connection, a code editor, anything will work, even something as wonderful as Notepad, a web browser, just about any modern browser will do, and there's some starter files available at johnray.com/eternal-rest, and a couple things to download if you want from there as well. So you can even start working on that as I talk about the API. So first of all, REST stands for Representational State Transfer. What the heck does that mean? So if we have a URL, we put in a URL to our API bot, and we'll get back some type of structured data. It might be HTML, it might be XML, JSON, any kind of thing. Excuse me. On a basic level, this is how websites work. You put in a URL, you get an HTML page back. That's basically what REST is. All right, the WP REST API, you give it a URL, you get some JSON back. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a very common thing that you can use in just about any language. So it doesn't have to be JavaScript, but JavaScript just tends to handle it pretty well. But you don't have to just use the URL. With the WP REST API, you can also call it from PHP using a function called REST-do-request. And there's also a Backbone JS client built into WordPress that you can use to access content as well. We're just going to talk about the URL version, but those things are available to you this time. So, HTTP verbs. So these are things you're probably familiar with, you've probably heard before, but they become very important when we talk about the REST API. So, you are at a computer, you say, hey server, he says, sup yo. There are a couple of different ways that you can talk to the server and get content or talk to them. So the first is a get. This is reading content. So you're saying, hey server, I want this content. Server sends that content back to you. There's also a post. which is to create content, or say, hey server, I want to add this to your records or whatever. Post is create. There's a put, which is an update / replace. And there's a patch, which is an update / modify. Post, put, and patch are all pretty similar, and a lot of times will work interchangeably, but they're all sort of creating or updating, that sort of thing. And then, of course, deleting or removing. All right. Now, we've heard a lot of routes and endpoints. A lot of times they seem like they're used interchangeably, and to a little bit of extent they are. What's the difference, though? A route is a map to the zombie nest. Okay? It's directions on how to get there. When you actually get in a truck and go to the zombie nest, that is an endpoint. So if you're combining a route and an HTTP verb, that's an endpoint. So whether it's say a GET request, you're using a truck, or maybe a post and then you use a tank, or maybe you use the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, whatever you're doing, matching an HTTP verb and a route gets you an endpoint. All right, so let's actually take a look at some what you're going to get back. This is my site, apocalypseherald.com/wp-json. This, and actually let me switch to it so we can actually take a look. But this is going to be available to you at any WordPress REST API. So, or any WordPress website that implements the REST API, which is pretty much all of them. So at the WP-JSON, this is the base of the WordPress REST API. So it's mostly content about this implementation, and particularly this website. So first of all, you have a name. The Apocalypse Herald is the name of the site. A description. You have a URL, home page, GMT offset, time zone string, namespaces. Two namespaces here are by default are OEmbed 1.0, which we're not going to talk about much today, and the WP/v2, which is the JSON API that we will talk about. Then you have some information about authentication, routes. So the route where we are currently is the /route. There's no namespace because we're at the base of it. And then here, what methods are available. And then your endpoints, remember, taking a verb, adding it to a route, gets you an endpoint. So the first endpoint here is with a method of get, and then the different arguments that are available. In this, because it's mostly settings and sort of how it's set up, you're mostly seeing just context, whether it's required and such. You also have an underscore links, which gives you an easy access to a link that you can access the WP-JSON API. All right, OEmbed, we're going to skip. Okay, WP/v2 is the namespace. WP-v2, that's the namespace we're going to be talking about. So the namespace is WP-v2. Methods that are available to you are get, endpoints, method get, and then you can say what namespace you're looking for, context, etc. All right, now it's going to start getting interesting, I promise. Once you get past WP-v2, which is the base of the JSON API, you can say get posts. So you have your posts, namespace, WP-v2, methods available to you are get and post. So to read and then to get information. Endpoints that are available to you. So first we're going to match the get with the route. And the arguments here, context as before, and it gives you a lot of description so you can go in and look at each of those things. And then it starts to look a lot like your typical WP query. So it gives you a lot of the options for gathering information in that way. So here first we have the page. So what page are we on? Am I on page 1, page 2, etc.? And these are used as parameters within the URL. So if I go to Apocalypse Herald /wp-json/wp/v2/posts, and then I want to do, say, the second page, then I would do a question mark, page equals 2. So just like a regular URL parameter. We can also do a per page, much in the same way that, or post per page that you would see in WP query. The default is 10, -1 will get you everything, just the same way as post per page does before. Search allows you to search for a particular character string within the WP. I'll within WP posts. After allows you to give it a date and say posts that have happened after this. You can search by author. You can exclude authors by ID. You can search for things that were posted before a certain date. You can exclude particular posts by ID. You can include particular posts by ID. You can set an offset. You can do order, ascending or descending. You can do an order by, and then it enumerates all the different ways that you can do that. So there's a lot of information in here about how you can actually use the WP REST API. So even if you forget or you're like, well, do we have this or not? You can just go to WP/JSON and find a lot of information about it. All right, I'm going to keep going here. Slug, status. You can grab categories. You can exclude categories, tags, include tags, grab just sticky posts, etc. All right, so that's all the get. That's the read. Next, we're going to talk about the post, which is the create. Now, when you're getting, it's a lot about what type of pieces of the collection do I want to get. When you're posting, you're adding something, you're creating something. So the arguments are going to be different, at least in this case. So the args available to you, you can set the date, set the GMT date. You can set the slug, set the status, set the password if it's a password protected post, set the title, the content, set the author, if there's an excerpt, featured media, comment status, ping status, format. I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to show you how powerful it is. So you can grab meta information, sticky, template, categories, Now, all right, so that's just the /posts. After that, we get to this little sucker, which is basically a regular expression saying you can put an ID in here and you can get a particular post. So for that, you get post, put, patch, and delete because you're dealing with a single item or single post. So you can do all these different functions to it. Then it starts enumerating the endpoints. So the get has these types of arguments because you're just grabbing a particular post. If there's a password to include it. So methods, again, post, put, and patch are pretty similar. And so you can grab or use similar HTTP verbs when you're grabbing that content, or when you're updating that content, rather. And then your args, you have ID, date GMT, basically all of the different fields that a post will have. It allows you to update those through the REST API. Okay, so these are just all pieces of a post. Comment status, ping status, format, meta, whether it's sticky or not. The template. Template is actually the PHP file that is used to show that particular post. Categories, tags, etc. Then you have methods, or the method of delete, and it's basically, yes, I want to delete, this is the idea of what I want to delete, and yes, I want to definitely delete it, so forcing it. Okay, there is a whole lot more to this, but I'm going to start going a little quicker because I think I would be asleep if I was in your shoes. So here we have about revisions. I'm not going to go into depth about that, but I do want to show you all the other things that you can do. So there's also pages. So in the same way that you can grab pages and update same way that you can grab posts and update posts, you can do all of that through with pages as well. So it has similar endpoints, similar ways of searching through things, etc. That's the post, 4 pages. All right. And then again, we have pages with the ID, so you can grab a particular page, etc. All right. Next here, we have revisions. I'm going to skip that. So you can also grab media by default. So attachments and those sorts of things you can grab by default and has their own set of arguments and such as well. And then the post method for them for media. Grab a media by ID. You can also grab post types. So if you want to grab just what post types are available, you can grab custom post types, all that sort of stuff. Particular post type, you can grab statuses, particular status, taxonomies, and then separately we'll also have categories and tags And last, oh, no, excuse me, not last, we have users. So you can grab users through the REST API and make changes to them, users by ID. You can grab the currently authenticated user or the user/me. You can grab comments. You can grab a particular comment. And you can grab settings. And then at the bottom, it has this little help API. Okay. Any questions thus far? It's okay to say yes. It's okay to say no. All right. Now that we've sort of seen all the schema about the content and what it's available, let's actually look at some content. So we're going to go to /posts. So this is just apocalypseherald.com/wp-json/wp/v2/posts. Yes, I'm already tired of saying it. Okay. So here we have an ID of 22. It's just the ID for this particular thing. We have your date. We have your date GMT, your GUID, your modified, last time it was modified GMT, the slug, status, type of the post type that it is, a link to it. This is a link on the server. Title, whatever the title of this thing is, the content rendered so that you can actually include the HTML and such in it when you export it, or not export it, but when you use it in excerpt. You can grab the author. There's the author ID. There's featured media, comment status, ping status, sticky, template, format, meta. And then you also have your categories. So this has categories of ID 2 and ID 5, your tags, ID of 7 and 6. And then pretty helpfully, it has underscore links, and it has a link to this particular post, just this post. So we're looking at it in sort of the collection. And you can link to this post in particular. So you can grab that easily. You also have a link to the collection. So where is this found? Where's an easy place to find this? So you can grab that there. You also have the about, which is about what particular post type this is. You can grab the author, and you can grab replies or comments, version history. You can grab attachments, the terms that are available, pages of terms that are used. This one uses category and tags, and queries, which is a sort of shorthand URL format. Okay, and then we get to the next ID. All right. So, making sense thus far? Okay. All right, let's head back to this guy. All right, what I want you to do is get your hands dirty with the API. I want you to go to 2017.wpcampus.org/wp-json, and from there, I'd like you to find the entry for this session, and also find the entry for me. And custom post types may be involved. There's a warning. So take a few minutes and do that. If you have any questions, feel free to throw up a hand. I'll wander a little bit while we're just taking a look. That link is also available on the internal REST page. Okay, we kind of find it. Need a couple more minutes. Where are we? Yeah, so this is the default one. So because I installed a plugin that formats the pixels that I can look at on the. Alrighty, let's keep moving because we still have a lot to cover. Okay, so a couple possible answers for the session. Using an ID, you could have done wp-json/wp/v2/schedule/454, which is the ID for this particular session. For speaker, ended up using so the speaker's custom post type, and then I used a parameter of slug and equal to John-Ray in order to find it there. So those are possible answers. Your answers could have been different, but these are a couple ways you can find. Okay, now embedded. A lot of times when you grab, yes. Yeah. So the for the you guys here, he asked if the schedule and speakers were available to any WordPress site or just available to the WPCampus site. They are custom post types that WPCampus implemented on their site so they could more easily share speaker and schedule content. So they are not available on any site, but you can easily put in your custom post types to be available on whatever site you're working on. Okay, yes? No, custom post types are not automatically created in the REST API, but it is very easy to add them, and we'll get there. Yep. So we noticed when we pulled down a post that we had, say, categories and an author. We had just had IDs. We didn't actually have content for those. So one way to actually do this is with a global parameter called embed, which looks something like this. So you can use a question mark and then underscore embed. You can use underscore embed equals true if whatever you're working on happens to need that sort of value, that pair embed equals true, but you can just use the underscore embed. So what that looks like is if we go to this one here. So this is the same thing, /post, but with the underscore embed. And then if you scroll down, so we still have categories with IDs, we have the underscore links, but under the underscore links, there is a new section called embedded, right there. So within that, we have an author, and then we have information about the author's ID, name, URL, description link, avatar URLs, etc. And then we also have WP term, which would be our terms and taxonomies. Within that, we have, excuse me, this is our first category with an ID of 2. Here's a link, the name of it, slugs, category, or taxonomy of category, links to it, etc. Here's another category. As we go further down, it's a new array here. These little square brackets are for arrays. There's a new array for the tags. So categories are in their own array, tags are in their own array, any other taxonomies will be in their own array, and then information about those tags. Okay. Does that largely make sense? Okay. The great thing about this is you only have to do one HTTP request to get all that information. The bad thing is that that can make your file balloon rather quickly. So it could be a much larger file than you might want to, particularly if you're pulling a lot of posts in at once. So use wisely. Okay, now we're going to talk about modifying the API. All right, so this is setting up your own routes. So this code actually doesn't have anything to do specifically with the REST API yet. This is just a function that takes in some data, grabs posts based upon the author of that data. Excuse me. It basically is trying to get the title of the post by an author. First title of the post by an author. So it has the important part here. Sorry, my mouse. There's my mouse. Okay. If empty, return null. Return post, post title. So that's all it's really doing. The part where the REST API comes in is this here. So we're adding an action, REST API init, and then we'll have a function, anonymous function. We're going to register a REST route. First thing here is our namespace. So in this case, I made the namespace zombie/v1. You generally want to use something unique so that namespaces are not going to collide. It's also good to use a v1 or v2, etc., so that if you are working on v1 for a long time and then you make a breaking change, rather than breaking everything, you can go to v2 and then everybody can still access it properly. Next thing here is our author and ID. So it can take in that content. So this is the actual route part of it. Then array, you have what methods are available to it, in this case just get, and the callback, which is the get zombie title, which is the little function we saw on the previous slide. So that was one way to create your own route. Sometimes though, you have a custom post type, and you just want to make sure that that custom post type is available in the REST API. Well, it's actually fairly simple. All you have to do is this show in REST equals true, or arrow true. So very simple to add the default fields and everything from a custom post type into the REST API, and it just works. I say that, and then I probably won't, but it should just work. Yes?
When we do the REST request, and it's /posts, whatever, or /pages, then /custom post type slug?
Yes, that's correct. So the custom post type slug will be what is used for the route. Just trying to repeat it for the people. Okay. All right, so custom bullets. So sometimes you have some fields that are maybe added to a post, maybe added to a custom post type that you want to add. So you can do that with a register REST field. This object type is the post type. The string here is just the name of the field, and the arguments are here with our get callbacks. So the first argument is whatever the callback function is for the getting the content. The next is the callback for updating the content. And the last one there is the schema for if you need to get the schema for it. So that's one way. Another way is with register meta, you just do show and rest equals true, and you cry less. So that's what I do. All right. Now, there are times when you need something a bit bigger. You need some more precision in the types of things that you need to return, or you need to, in some way, write your own REST responses. So WP REST controller class is one way you do this. So for instance, I'm in the process of writing a conference app. So there were a lot of proposals sent to the conference. Some were accepted, some were rejected. I don't ever want to show the rejected proposals in anything public, right? I only want to show accepted proposals. So I wrote my own WP REST controller class to just return the accepted proposals. So in that case, I needed a bit more than what the defaults were going to give me. All right, so once you work with this, it allows you to implement register routes, set item, get item, create item, update item, add infinitum, etc. So whatever other things you need to do to create this REST thing, you can do through the WP REST controller class. All right, now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty and actually build something. So zombie reader is a simple reader. We're going to pull in JSON from a site. We're going to process that JSON. We're then going to display a title and excerpt. And then, as we have time, which I hope we will, we'll add metadata to it. We'll add categories and tags. And then we'll go multi-page, showing each post by itself, so implementing sort of a single.php of it. So before we get there, though, JSON-P. JSON-P is JSON with padding. So web browsers have this crazy awesome thing that's getting in our way, but it's a crazy awesome thing about cross-domain policy. Meaning, if I am writing an app on my computer and I want to get information from a server, my computer and that server are not the same computer, right? So they are going across domains. Oftentimes, this can be a large security hole, cross-site scripting, and et cetera, et cetera. So web browsers don't usually allow that type of behavior when it is through JavaScript or through an XML HTTP request. That's what the function is. So we're going to go a little bit different route and use JSON-P. It's JSON with padding. So what this is going to do, it's another global parameter to WordPress that you can include. Underscore JSON-P equals, and we'll do this, but underscore JSON-P equals, and then the callback function that you want to use. So that is how we're going to grab content. That solved a lot of issues of like you guys having specific things installed on your computers and having specific things done on the server, etc. So this is the easy way that we're going to do it. All right, so let's open a can. Oh, whoops, zombie. All right, so go ahead and bring up your favorite code editor. This code has been provided for you. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So this was in the starter files that you guys should have hopefully already downloaded. A little bit larger. So I'm on the index.html page. It's a pretty standard thing. In general, you won't have to touch the index.html or main CSS. We're just going to work in the main.js. But I want to give you a sort of a rundown of what's here so you have an idea. All right, so we have just your regular doc type, HTML tag, head tag, character set, title, viewport meta tag. We've got a couple fonts that I'm bringing in. And we have a style sheet, main.css. Within the body, we just have an overall primary tag, primary div. We have a header. Our zombie reader title is actually a link, which we'll use later on. And then we have a main. We have a div with an ID of content, which is where we'll be, what we'll be sort of appending the children or appending nodes to. And then it's just close div, close main, and then calling our script main.js. Okay, make sense? All right. Next thing, main.css is largely a normalized CSS, which I didn't bother to sort of break out, and then some specific things down here for what we'll be doing with when we add nodes, etc. So probably something you don't have to touch, but there it is. Feel free to mess with it if you need to. Okay, so this is the main.js file. We're going to start by grabbing our content element. So this right here is our content element. Is that large enough for everybody to see, like in the back and everything? Okay. All right. We're going to take document.element by ID content. So we're grabbing that, creating the content element. We're using a default path here of the apocalypsherald.com/wp-json/wp/v2/posts, and then a generic variable that we'll use later on. Okay. Yeah. Is that not in there? Yeah, go ahead and add that in if it's not in there. I thought I had added it, but apparently I did not. It's always something we can add a little later. It won't come in until a bit later down. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go down to get the JSON, and I'm going to create a script element. I have to pardon my ham-fisted typing. All right, we're just going to create an element. Create element, and it's going to be a script. And then I want a path variable as well. All right, I'm going to take the path. I'm going to set it equal to the default path that we set earlier. I'm going to add our JSON-P. Oops, I totally misspelled that. JSON-P equals process JSON. All right, so we're just adding that parameter to the default path. All right, and then I'm just going to take that and append it to the body. It should be within the script element, so a var script element of comma and then path, but you can var it separately if you want. That's all good. It's okay. I'd be that. I'd do that too. All right. Next, we're talking about process JSON, which is the callback function that we'll be using to process the JSON when it comes in. So the first thing we're going to call is clear content, which we'll set up in a second. And then we're going to do print content data. Making sense thus far? Next thing we're going to do is write our clear content function. So I'm going to grab any children that currently exist of the content element. Save it in kids. And I'm just going to do a simple for loop through I equals 0. Less than kids dot length. And then, oops. And then whatever element we're on, I'm going to remove child. Oops. Child, kids, sub I. Okay. If I get too ahead, feel free to flag me down. All right. Now we're going to do the print content. So I'm creating just I is just a iteration variable, and then I'm creating a div document dot create element div. And then I'm going to run a while loop to go through while there's content in I, add an I++ before I forget it. So do that. And then I'm going to append. Oops. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to print a single piece of content. I'm going to return a node or an element from that function, but I'm going to print the particular piece of content. All right. And then I'm just going to set the attribute, the class attribute of the div. To content. Scroll up a little bit so it's a little bit higher on the screen. And then the last thing I'm going to do is, now that I've sort of grabbed all of those pieces of content, I'm going to just, oops, I forgot element. Let's element append the div. Okay, the last, I think it's the last function we'll need. Yeah, well, one small thing. Last thing we'll do is to print the actual piece of content. Good to go, following along. Okay. All right, so last thing here is the print piece. So this is going to be a lot of creating elements. The piece. The piece. First of all, we're going to create a div that's going to hold all of the content for this particular piece of content. We're going to create a title, which is going to hold the title of the content. Ta-ta! Yeah, ta-ta! You know you were in a language class, did you? Neither did I, don't worry. All right. After the title, we are going to do the excerpt. This will not be the last time that I misspell something. Excerpt's also going to be in a div. Stuff around. You guys a chance to catch up? All right. Then I'm going to take the piece of content, set attribute. Just going to set its class so that the JavaScript or the CSS can access it actually. So it's a piece. All right. This is where it starts to get fun, maybe, if you're like coding like me. Maybe where it starts to get horrible if you don't like coding. All right, so piece.title, not title. So we want to make sure that the piece.title exists. If it does, do title.inner HTML equals piece.title.inner rendered. Okay. We can also do an else here for fun, I don't know. But to cover our bases, if there doesn't happen to be a title, we can set it to say empty title. Okay. Next thing we're going to check for is the excerpt. So it's going to be piece dot excerpt dot rendered. And then the inner HTML of that will be piece dot excerpt rendered. If you're smart, you can copy and paste things. If you're like me, you can keep typing. All right, so this is, now we have our title in the title and our excerpt in excerpt. Next thing we're going to do is we need to append the piece dot append child. We need to get the title into our overall div. And then we need to also append the excerpt. And the final thing to do here is to return the piece. Okay, we're almost done this section. Don't worry. You're going to see something hopefully cool, which is hopefully not me failing at typing, but in just a second. All right, we good there? We got our print pieces ready to go? All right, last thing we got to do is in the init function, we need to do get the JSON. So this is the initial thing that adds a script element to our page and then grabs our content. Okay, if you're in brackets, there's this little thing over on the corner that will set the page live for you, or you can just go click on it and open it in the browser. No, why did you not work? All right. What did I screw up? Title? Error. Server responded with a status of 404. That can't be good. What did I break? My path point? At the top? Posts. Should be right. P. Process JSON. Okay. Let's. Stop. Come on, computer. Hello, computer. Anybody know the key command for like pulling things out of full screen? No. Outside maybe. No. Hold on. Head console drawer. Oh, that's a fade icon. Why is that? Let's do that. Alrighty. Oops. Okay. Control Command F. Thank you. All right. Not working for me here. Where did I break? Uh-huh. Well, this document.body.append child should. It at least was running. Once you appended the child, it would run it. Well, then I'm appending it to the body. Well, so what happens is it goes out and gets that content and brings it back. What it brings back is the reason you're giving JSON P the callback function is when it pulls it back, it has the callback function and then the JSON's wrapped in it. So it ends up running it. Did I not do the source? Oh, that's what it is. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Okay. I skipped a line. Okay, so what you're supposed to do in the get the JSON, you're adding source here of the path. What are you doing? Source path. Okay. Sorry, I didn't believe you. All right. Now, please work. There we go. Okay. Now it's pulling in the content. It helps to actually complete the code. Word to the wise. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. So this right here. So what I had forgotten to do was I set up all these fancy things, and then it didn't tell it to do anything. So you want a script element.set attribute, the source attribute, and then set it to the path, which in this case is default path plus JSON P. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, for those of you who got it to work, I want you to work on adding a date and author meta information. We will go over this in a few minutes, but I want to take some time to troubleshoot with people. Thank you for troubleshooting with me. And then so if you want to work on that in the meantime, we can do that. Yes. Which print piece? Gotcha. Print piece. Okay, ready to keep going? All right. I promise that I will try to write all of the lines of code this time. All right, so we're going to add some metadata. So, let's see here. Okay. We are going to go down to our get the JSON. I'm going to add here another parameter underscore embed. So I'm going to do an ampersand and then underscore embed to embed the, in this case, the author content. The date's already there, but we're going to add author and date. So we're doing underscore embed there. And then we need to make a few changes to our print piece section. Basically just going to be adding stuff. I'm going to do a new var up here to here. So we're going to create a meta. It's going to be a div document. Oops. Dot create element. It's going to be a div. And then we're going to create an author. Can I get off the screen there? Author equals document dot create element, and I am using a span here just because. And for extra fun, so we have a post date. I'm going to create a time tag for this one. So I'm wild and crazy like that. All right. So those are the 3 additional elements we're going to create. One for the meta overall, one for the author, one for the date. So a div, a span, and a time. Next thing I'm just going to do is set the class of the meta tag to meta. I'm wild and crazy like that. Okay. This makes sense thus far? All right. Scroll down. Doesn't really matter where we do it exactly, but I was going to put it after the title here, just because that's where we'll want to append it anyway. All right. So I'm going to say if, and then piece dot. Because the author is embedded, we're going to grab it from the underscore embedded section. Underscore embedded dot author. Oops, author. And then that author is actually an array, but at this point we're not going to care about finding which author it is. We're just going to grab the first one and see if the name, grab the name. So if there's a name for the author, we're going to grab that, and we're going to stick it in the author tag we just created. Equals, I'm going to copy and paste, because I'm tired of typing already. And you probably are too. Okay, so that's the author portion. Next, I'm going to grab the date, and the date is actually part of what initially comes back. So we don't have to go to embedded to get that. We can just grab the date directly. And then I'm going to create a new variable called the date. And the reason I'm going to do this is because the date as it's stored is ISO 8601 or something like that, and it's not superhuman readable. So when I create a date object, it's going to actually parse that date that I give it, and then I can more easily do something a little bit more human readable. So I'll then take post date dot inner HTML, a good standby, and then I'm going to take the date. I'll do a dot to date string. Oops. Okay. Once I had those together, then I just need to append them to my meta. So append the author first, and then I'm going to append the date. Okay, making sense thus far? We got one last little thing to do, but I don't want to go there before everyone's ready. you're working ahead, the last thing you need to do is just to append the meta to the piece. We'll do that in a second, but I want to give people a chance to type. And all of this code will be available later, so if you don't get somewhere, it's there, it'll be there and fully commented. All right, so last thing I'm going to do is take the piece and append the meta between the title and the excerpt. All right. Did John remember to type everything? This is the next question. Woo! Okay. There they appeared. Just these two little guys right here. Yeah.
Now, to grab the embed stuff, you didn't put the embed in the URL based on.
I did. So that was the first thing I did. So that might be, if you missed that, I added this little thing here. It was the very first thing I did, so if you came back a little late or whatever from your break, that's there. Okay? We good? You want to move on? Need some troubleshooting? All right. I'm going to take that as a sign to move on. The next thing we're going to do is get some categories. So again, we're going to be in print pieces, or excuse me, print piece. And I'm going to do a new var statement just to sort of separate it, but you can always keep them all together if you want, or use lets, which is the super cool new way to do it. I was just trying to be simple. All right, so I'm going to create a cats element. There's actually a lot of elements in this one. So if you are cool and use copy and paste, you may get there faster than me, which might help you. All right. I will type slow for the sake of those who need me to. All right, so cats, I'm creating a UL for the categories. Next, I'm just going to do a little counter. Then I'm going to grab the tags, or create an element for the tags, rather. Document dot create element. It's going to be a UL element again. UL element. I'm also going to do sort of a shortcut for terms. So in this case, so we use the embed to grab the terms, right? Let me scroll up a little bit so that's a little easier to see. Okay. So terms.piece and then underscore embedded. And then because, oops, sorry, not the curly brackets. That was a mistype. Colon term. No M either. Need good typing M. Okay, so normally, like when we did the author, we just did dot underscore embedded dot author. Because WP colon term has a colon in it, if you use the dot notation, it's going to break and die. So you need to use the bracket notation for this particular part, which is part of why I'm doing sort of a shortcut, so I don't have to keep remembering to do the WP colon term within brackets. All right. We're also going to create the terms div, which is going to hold both our categories and our tags later on. And that's going to be another div. And then, because I'm manually attentive and want to have a title for my categories, I'm going to add a span element for our cat title. And I'm going to do the same thing for the tags as well. Hopefully I will spell things correctly, but I make no promises. Oops, I totally messed that up. All right. So tag title, and then it's going to be document dot create element, and another span. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's the main things that the elements we're going to be creating. Ready to move on? I'm just going to format these a little easier so you can see them if you're having troubles. Okay. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down below the excerpt. Doesn't really matter where we do it, but just because that's the order I'm going to have things. So I'm going to set a while loop. Excuse me, before I do that, I'm going to do cats.setAttribute. Class. Categories. Tags.setAttribute. Class. Tags. All right. So I'm just setting the classes for those things. Next, I'm going to create a while loop. Term sub I. If category equals terms, it's going to be sub I, and then each set of terms is in their own array. So we term sub I sub 0. So if the first one is equal to categories, or excuse me, first taxonomy is equal to category, then I know that all the ones in that particular array are categories. All right, I'm just going to set a counter. And then, so once I am in the categories array, then I want to loop through all of the categories. So I'll do terms sub I sub j. And I'm going to create one more item, which is going to be a category item. All right, so once I have created a cat item, so it's an li tag, so as we've created before, we created ul tags to hold the categories. So the cat item, cat item dot inner HTML is going to be equal to the name of the term where we are, which is term sub I sub j dot name. Then we want to append that child, append the cat item to the cats array. We want to increment our counter. Just going to create an else loop real quick and add I++ for us. Oops. There. All right. So what we're doing here is we're running a while loop. We're going through our terms, all the different terms that are available to us, or it's an array of arrays. So we're taking the terms array. We're looking at the first element in the terms array. If the first element within the array within the array, is if that taxonomy name is equal to category, then we want to create a cat item or one of the category, and we want to append it to the categories. So I'm taking creating an li tag, saving the name within the li tag, and then appending that to the categories UL tag. Does that make sense? Okay. The next part is doing basically the same thing, but with tags. So I'm going to copy and paste. Replace this here. All right, so instead of category, it's going to be equal to post tag. Most of this will stay the same except for tag item. Basically all the cats turn to tags. If only I could do that in my house. My wife wouldn't be happy. All right. Okay, so now if it's not a category, if we're not an array of categories, check if we're an array of tags, loop through those, and add them to the tag item, or to add each tag item to the the tags element. Okay, making sense? Following along? Okay. All right. The last thing we need to do. Yep. Yeah, I just copied since it's all the same structure, it's just tags versus category. Yep, and then just renamed everything. All right. All right, the last thing we need to do is then append all that stuff that we found, or all the category information to it. So I'm going to set attribute set the class of the terms object or terms element to terms. I'll scroll up so you can see a bit better where I am. Then it's just a lot of cat title dot HTML equals categories. And then we want to append the terms element. We want to append first the cat title. And then we want to append the cats themselves, so the UL containing all the categories. Last thing we want to do is do that for the tags as well, or maybe not quite the last thing, but almost the last thing. So I'm just copying what we just did for the categories, pasting it again, and changing the cats to tags. Again, wish I could do that in my house. Sorry to all of you who are cat lovers. My wife, if you're watching this, I love you. And our cats. Okay. And what is actually the last thing to do is to append child the terms to the piece. Alrighty. Realize that I'm throwing a lot of code at you. There will be code available for you to take a look at later. All right. We ready to see if I typed everything properly? Come on. There we are. All right, so there we go. Categories and tags. Absolutely. Okay, so from here, how are we feeling? There are about 15 minutes left, but there's a half hour between this and the next thing. The final piece of this is to create a sort of render function and allow you to do multiple pages. Are we feeling ready to try to hit that? Or do you all want to cry and leave? I'm happy to do either. And we have a little bit of a buffer with the next session, so if anybody wants to go ahead and leave, that's cool too. I won't take offense. You want to keep going? Yeah. Is that enough the window for you? Now, one other complication to this is that the starter files that I had done, I initially did some starter files, then I changed stuff, and then I tried to re-upload starter files. It appears that some of you have still gotten the old starter files. I blame the internet. I don't know why that happened. It had the same name. I don't know where it cached something. I don't know. So there will be some functions that we probably will need to add. Also related to this is that the code may be the sort of the full commented code may end up being the old code rather than the new code that has more of what we did. So what I would say is you can certainly download the code today, but you may want to give me a chance just to replace it and give it a different name so that you're definitely getting the new code. Feel like we want to keep going? No defectors? Yeah? Sure. So the embed, the way to embed, is this what you're looking for? Okay, so when we include the embed, _embed parameter within the URL, it is going to reply, the JSON that's going to reply is going to embed things like author, categories, tags, whatever taxonomies, things that are referenced within that post. It's titled _embedded. That's correct. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. All right. Once more into the breach, my friends. All right. Whew. Here we go. All right. So if you have, next thing we're going to do is a render function. If this is not on your starter file, my apologies. But this is what it's going to look like. It's just going to be function, render, URL, like that. All right, so the first thing we want to do is to clear the content. Oops. Then I'm going to set up a temporary variable. I'm going to take the URL, I'm going to split it based upon the slash, because that's how URLs are put up or divided. This is what this is ended to be is a window.location.hash is what we're going to get in from the URL. So we're going to split it by a slash, and then I only want the first section because that's going to be the hashtag part. And then I'm also going to do a post variable. Next thing I want to do, oops, not a bar. If we're on the home page, and I can spell temp properly, then, and it is equal to the URL is blank, so we're on the home page. What I want to do is I just want to print content, the data. Now, the data is that variable that we added in the beginning that was not in the old starter files, unfortunately. So this, we're going to get to actually defining this, but this is, we're going to put it in here for now, and we'll get to defining it in a little bit. Next thing we want to do, so we're going to we're going to get post by slug, which is another function we have not written yet. And I'm going to send it temp.split I'm going to split it based upon the hashtag. I'm going to send just the first, or rather the second section. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the hash. In this case, it might be hashtag awesome page. So I have the actual hashtag #, then I have awesome page. So I'm pulling off that hashtag by doing a split, and then since the part that I want is after the hashtag, I'm doing the second element, or _1. Make sense? Okay. All right. Next, so if we find content, if this hashtag matches something, then I want to print out that particular piece of content. And so I'm going to append to the content element the return, whatever returns from print piece. So I'm going to send it print piece and give post to print piece. It's going to print that. It's going to return an element, and then I'm going to append that element to the content element. Since we don't need multiple things, we don't need to send it through print content. We can just print that particular piece. Okay. That's good there. All right. Now, if we don't get if get post by slug doesn't find it, then it's not something that's on our site. So we can give it a 404. This is also a part that you can skip if you don't care to. It's not required. But I'm just creating an element just going to hold a 404 message. That is all it is. Okay, and then I'm going to do 404. Sorry, dot inner HTML equals. I'm just going to do h2 error 404. Danger, Will Robbins. All right, and then last thing I have to do with that is do the content element and append that child. So now that we have a 404 message, we just need to append it to the content when it happens. Make sense? Okay. Now we're going to write the get post by slug. Everybody ready to move on? Maybe? Moved on long ago? Daydreaming? Okay. Get post by slug. Next thing we do here, do a var, set up a counter. We're going to do a while loop. The data, again, we haven't quite set this up yet, but we'll get there. Data sub I. And if the data sub I dot slug equals slug, then we want to return the data sub I because that's the particular content that we want because it matches the slug that we asked for, right? All right. Can't forget the I++, because I will. And then if we get through the while loop and we still haven't found a slug that matches, then we're pretty sure that the slug does not exist in our current content. So we'll just return false. Oh, well, it would help if I spelled things properly. Thank you. Okay. All right, we got 2 more sections here. So we need to make some updates to process JSON now. I think is right here. So here's where we're going to set the data. I'm just going to set it equal to the data that we got back. So I'm just saving it in a variable that's global to this content so that we can access it from anywhere else that we need to. May not be the best of data structures, but it works. All right. We don't want to print the content here anymore because we actually want to print it whenever the window hash changes. So we're going to run our render function. Window.location.hash. So we're going to grab the hash information and we're going to run the render function that we did before. And the other thing that we need to do is set a event listener so that whenever that changes, we then run the new render function. So we're going to do window.add event listener. And we have a hash change. It also helps to spell hash change properly. Hash change. And then we're going to do an anonymous function. But I'm going to enclose that in parentheses. All right. And then all we're going to do within that function is run render on window.location.hash. And then after that, we just need a false here. The final thing, and a semicolon. So one more small part, but this should actually work as is right now. We good? All right. The last thing we want to do is I just want to make it so that the when we print a post, we add a slug or add a link within the title so that we can link to it and go to it more easily. So we're going to go up within print piece. We're going to go up to title. All right, so I'm going to add in here if piece.slug. So if the slug exists, then what I want to do is I'm going to create an A tag. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to set the attribute on that A tag. Set the source. Excuse me, I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. href, sorry. href, and then it's going to be hashtag, then plus piece.slug. Okay, so we're basically just taking the slug, adding a hashtag to the front, saving that as our link. For our link text, we're going to grab the title, piece.rendered, not in quotation marks, excuse me, title. Title. All right. And the last thing here is to append title.append child, the A tag. Okay. And then this becomes the else condition. Yes, you're right. My bad. All right. Piece.title.rendered. Making sense? Ready to see if I did anything else wrong in my typing? Okay. Okay, so now if we click on this, it shows us just that post. And then the top is a link, so we can go back to that, etc. Okay, I have one final addition with just 2 minutes left. The last thing I want to do, it's pretty quick, is that when we're printing the full content of something, or when we're going to just a page, I want to print the full content, not the excerpt, and I want to not print a link. I just want to print the title. Okay? So first thing I want to do, go to print piece. Top of print piece, I'm going to add a default variable. Add a variable. I'm going to set its default to false. So full content. Next thing here is under piece.slug. I want to ask if there's a slug and it's not full. That's when I want to print the A tag. And then further down for the excerpt, if full, then let's do this. If piece dot content dot rendered, then I want to do, in theory, probably would be better not to just reuse this thing or to make it a more generic tag, but and change the excerpt tag to piece content dot rendered, and then the else condition is going to be this original section. And then the one final thing to do, final, is in get post by slug. We need to actually call it with a true. There it is. Get post by slug. No, I'm sorry, in the render function. I was in the wrong place. In the render function, under this post equals get post by slug. If post, then we want to call the post with second variable true. Make sense? All right, let's see if I broke stuff. All right, that's looking promising. There we go. Prints the full content and no link. Okay. Whew. That was long. A lot of typing. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you did not fall asleep. So the last thing here, mostly because I did this fun animation and I want to show it to you. Come on. Yeah, they're doing the can together. Okay, so that's my contact information. And actually, I'm gonna, if you have questions, comments, or snide remarks, I'd be happy to answer them. Let me just, come on, PowerPoint. Okay. Last thing here. Oops. There we go. Okay. So this is available. Basically, add dash post to this, and you'll get the answer. Get this page. So we have my contact information, my sci-fi story site, 8 words. If you have session feedback, particularly if you liked it, please add that. But if you didn't like it, if there are things I could do better, I'd be happy to hear that too. I want to get better. The files, full commented zombie reader code. Give me a little bit after class to replace that with something, because I just don't want you to get the old files by accident. If you have, for further reading, there's a WP REST API handbook. That is where I got a lot of the information today and some of the examples. So I highly recommend that. It really lays it out and gives more information. The JavaScript for WordPress course, It's a great course. It's another place where I learned a lot of that stuff. I liked it so much, I became an affiliate. At the same time, I like it so much that I don't think you have to. I'd rather you had the course than that I got something for it. So I have both an affiliate link and a non-affiliate link. Feel free to use the non-affiliate link if you so choose, but it's a really great course taught by Zach Gordon. He does a really good job. He goes, first section is all about JavaScript and just going deeply, and the next section is all about WP REST API. He's still creating content for it, but there's probably, I don't know, 10 hours already on there, and it'll just keep going. And if you have a hankering for more zombie web development, I did a free email course called Responsive Design and Undead Introduction, which is all about responsive design. So with that, you all don't want to fall over. Are there any questions, comments, or snide remarks? Thank you very much. Have a great day.